y'all to stop playing Trey. He writes, a lot of the whites truly believe that ancient Egyptians were not black. I don't think they believe that. I am certain that a lot of white supremacists say that, and I don't even think they believe it. But remember that you've observed certain wicked peoples have lied about who they are. They've lied about history. For example, there's an entire continent of people that call themselves Australians, but they're not Australian. They're really British, right? They came from Britain. Australia was started as a penal colony. So of course, we know that peoples move and relocate. We know that peoples conquer peoples. The Aborigines to Australia, the original people there, they are dark-skinned people, and they are still there. They're just there in much lower numbers because the Australians eradicated them through great violence. Right? Have you ever done any lives on the history and lessons of ancient Egypt? Yes, I touched on it a bit. There's an Arab comedian, actually. This is ironic. Yeah, he's a comedian by trade, and he's Egyptian, air quotes. He's Arab, right? So he speaks Arabic. And where does Arabic come from? Does it come from Egypt? No, it comes from Saudi Arabia. You're Arab. But they too claim Egyptian as their own. And this is not surprising, a great civilization. We all like to be associated with great things. But anyways, I did a response to him. I think his name, I'm not going to say his name because it doesn't matter what his name is. I actually remember his name. And I did a live on that, dispelling some of the nonsense that he said. But there's a great amount of research. The truth is known, but the truth is, it is suppressed. And that is not new. That's not new at all. I was recently in Egypt, and one thing that I noticed is when you look at the monuments as they get older and older, they get blacker. And as they become more recent, they become more Caucasoid. And it reflects the true trajectory of Egypt. Like, for example, there are certain features that people have based on their racial category, and race is in fact a real thing, though people lie about that. So for example, and mind you, I don't have the most the archetypal Negroid face based on the extreme of certain racial categories, but my face is very Negroid. And so there's a couple of things that I'll note for you that I observed in the ancient Egyptian remains. When you go farther back, so when you get 4,000 years back, you'll notice that the brow bone, right? So the nose will curve. So like the nose will go from the brow bone, there'll be a curve and a smoothness and a sloping in. This is not the typical shape of the European nose. The European nose, and Europeans have a little different DNA than, say, Africans. For example, Europeans have Neanderthal DNA. Whereas Africans do not, or blacks or people in the Negroid category do not. So from the brow bone, Caucasians, which would be inclusive of Arabs and Europeans, right? Their nose will come from the brow bone and be fairly straight, right? It's not going to have that curvature through like that. So their noses are bigger. Their noses have more volume, and their noses will come from the brow bone more straight. It kind of like more bisects the face. Then also another racial feature with the blacks, they'll have an upper lip, whereas and an upper and lower lip, whereas the Caucasoids, the whites, they'll typically have a much more reduced upper lip. So it'll be more on like the order of like something like this, like much more reduced, which is a racial feature. Then obviously the coiling of the hair, the coil indicates race. The bone density indicates race. Height indicates race. Skeletal structure indicates race. There's certain like Asians that have much longer torsos. They might not like proportionally, like, and you'll observe this not only in Asians, but also in indigenous people like the Guatemalans. So have shorter legs, longer torsos as say compared to Africans and Europeans. And then, of course, the shape of the eye is a racial indicator, too, which you'll have the epicantic eye fold, which will be typically assigned to the Asian or the indigenous, which, by the way, the African has the genetic code of everyone. The black man and woman have the genetic code of everyone, which is why you can see blacks with tightly coiled hair. You can see blacks with, more straight hair. You can see blacks that have albinism, which is to say devoid of pigment. You can see blacks that are extraordinarily dark. You can see blacks that have eyes like mine, which is to say rounded with a pronounced eyelid. You can see blacks who have an epicantic eye fold, which is like very much so like what you would expect a true-born Chinese to have. And you can see blacks that are tall like the Sudanese, blacks that are short like the Bushmen. So they have the genetic code of every racial category, whereas, but they don't have Neanderthal DNA. Whereas if you look at the other racial categories like the Mongoloid or the Caucasoid, they cannot produce every other person, right? They cannot produce black, for example. So you can't out of European get black. You cannot out of Asian get black, but you can out of black get Asian and get European or white, if you will. Some of these words are passe or obsolete. They're no longer in use, but they're actually useful, and they come from an anthropologically centered perspective. But anyways, I say all that to say this. When you go back in Egyptian history, you'll find that all of a sudden the upper lip is very pronounced. You get 4,000 years back, the upper lip is there. 4,000 years back, the nose shape is just like mine. 4,000 years back, everything is Negroid. Then you start to get into more recent Egyptian history after they've been conquered by who? The Assyrians, the Romans, the Arabs. They've been conquered. So yeah, the leaders are changing appearance because that's what happens when you conquer a people. You take over the land, you give the women the old 1-2, you heard me, skeet in them. You change the racial makeup. You become the monarchs. You bring in people from other places, like people like Cleopatra. People are like, was Cleopatra white or black? Cleopatra's irrelevant. She's not even a relevant person, but she definitely wasn't black. But that's in later age Egypt. That's not the pyramid building age. So when you go way back to the pyramid building age, and then here's another thing for all the people who are just liars. This is not about being pro-black. It's just about being pro-truth. So you look at people, and a people are known for a culture. They're known for their monuments, their language, and various other things. And here's some very persuasive evidence. Next time you hear a white person, or not a white person, because normal white people don't even care about this, right? You hear a white supremacist, or you hear an Arab, an Egyptian Arab lying. You ask them this. You say, okay, where does your language come from? Where in the world? Okay. So none of the languages that we associate with the Egyptians, not the people today, but the real Kemetic Egyptians, come from other places in the world. Those languages are more Sudanic, meaning going deeper into Africa, what you call Black Africa, what you call Sub-Saharan Africa. That's number one. The language traces to Africa. But here's the second thing. When you say, okay, well, Egyptians are known for being a pyramid building race. Where are your pyramids? Are there any pyramids in Saudi Arabia where you come from? No, there are none. Are there any pyramids in Europe where you come from? No, there are not. Are there pyramids in Africa? Yes, along the Nile, going towards Sudan, also known as Nubia, the Nubians. So we see that when you trace the way the gods are depicted, the way the religion is, the language, the pyramids, the architecture, it gets blacker and blacker and blacker, especially as you go back, but it traces down. You can find more of that culture deeper in Africa, but you cannot find that culture deeper in Saudi Arabia or deeper in Europe. So it's very clear as to the origin of this culture. Now, was the culture conquered and infiltrated? Absolutely. But it is as ludicrous to say that the people in Egypt today are Egyptian as much as it is to say that the people in America today are the original indigenous or natives of America. It's just not true. The natives of America look nothing like Donald Trump. They look a lot like people who are darker skinned and look nothing like Donald Trump. But if you were to take a look at our history for the last couple hundred years, you'd be like, yeah, Americans, they're white. Recently, they're white. But if you go back 4,000 years, they're not white no more, which is just to say that there's been a lot of cultural theft, and it is in the favor of the people who are currently dominating to lie about history and to assign all of the best things and all the best accomplishments to themselves. And I totally understand that. and oppositely, to assign the worst qualities to those whom they deem to be less than, to those whom they don't want to rise up. So the arguments are fairly goofy, and they also try to focus you on the wrong things. Like, for example, the Cleopatra thing. They try to make her so famous because she is, in fact, in recent Egyptian history, not in ancient Egyptian history. She's in recent Egyptian history. And she's Caucasian, so they want to focus on her, but she's irrelevant. And you ask them, well, what is the relevance of Cleopatra in Egyptian and world history? Like, what did she do? Did she build an extraordinary pyramid? Did she create a city? Did she win a war? Like, what is her relevance? Well, there's no relevance. She just had sexcapades. That's what she's known for. She's a famous slore. Really, it is. Somebody let me know if I'm incorrect. Anyways,